Hello, so today we are going to take a look at the Embraer 110 Bandeirante that's been developed by a company called NextGen for Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's been out for well over a year and somehow I've never quite got around to looking at it or buying it. I think it may have been quite expensive when it first came out, but it's slowly come down in price. It's about £30, just under £30 now. So that's about $35, something like that. As you can see, it's really nicely developed on the outside. So if we go around, it's quite a nice finish. The liveries are quite nice. There's lots and lots of third-party liveries available from the likes of FlightSim.2. If we go and jump inside the aeroplane, here's the real reason I'm interested in it. It is absolutely full of dials and switches and knobs and levers and things to fiddle with, basically, which is right up my street in terms of the simulator. So you can see, everything's modelled really nicely. And yes, it maybe everything looks a bit clean and tidy, but that does mean everything's nice and easy to read and nice and sharp, which is always a plus, especially when you have steam gauges and, lots of things to refer to around the cockpit. So I am going to go and get it up and running. And if we have a look at the map, we are at Newcastle Airport. We're just going to fly a very short flight down to Durham Tees Valley. So we'll just be using heading mode on the autopilot and having a play, really. It's quite a windy day. There's quite a stiff wind coming down the runway from the southwest. So we'll have some fun dealing with that. But yeah, we'll try some of the systems out on the airplane and just, find out how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to be following a checklist. As you can imagine, this is going to be quite involved to get the airplane up and started. So I've translated most of the checklist that's in the aircraft and in the instruction guides that come with it into kind of a functional checklist. So I'm missing out a lot of the checks and balances that you might do for safety reasons in the real aircraft. But hopefully this will mean we can get around and get it started up fairly quickly. So I will be using the default views that are built into it. So Control 6 takes us overhead. On the first switch we switch on is to go to external power, which is on the bottom half of the main bus here. So we go to external power, the light comes on, and the next thing we do is nip down to the instrument panel in front of the pilots, and we're looking for the radio stack. At the bottom we want to turn on the transponder to standby, and back overhead we go to the bus bar again. We turn the no smoking and the anti-collision lights on. And then we turn the inverters to on. So if you hear any pregnant pauses, it's me trying to realise where I got to in my checklist. Next, in the instrument panel, so Control 3, come back to the instrument panel. We are going to go and turn the GPS units on and go and program our basic flight plan in. So if we just skip sideways a little bit so we can see us do this. So we are going to fly from, if we just remind ourselves, EGNT down to EGNV. So just waiting for the satellites to capture, and they have done so. So we now go to the flight plan page, put the focus into the form, roll the inner knob, click on the keyboard. EGNT is Newcastle, and then roll again, click on the keyboard. EGNV is Durham Tees, and press enter. So we're just going to be flying headings today. We're not going to be playing too much with anything like procedures or anything like that. Okay, so remove the focus back from the flight plan, and you can now see the magenta line has appeared, and there it is on the plan. All good. Okay, we'll zoom in a little bit. Right, so we've got our flight plan sorted. What is next on our checklist? So from the pilot's view, we are going to go and set the flaps for takeoff. So 50% on the flaps lever. You can hear the electrical system is moving the flaps already for us, so that you can see them moving. We go back inside, press the barometric pressure shortcut key, which is B, and that will, obviously we could do this by finding out the barometric pressure, but we hit B and we set the barometric pressure. So we back Over to this side, we're going to turn the left and the right fuel pumps to on. And then we're into engine start now. So overhead, first thing we do is turn the inertial separators on. We turn the left ignition on and then the left starter, so ignition. We can do right or left, it doesn't matter. So there's the left starter. Then we look down here and we're looking for the NH dial for the left engine to get to 10%. When it gets to 10%, we can move the mixture for the left engine all the way forwards. And then we wait for the engine to stabilize. Okay, so we're going to see that from outside. Okay, so if we go back overhead, we do exactly the same with the right engine now. So, hit the, we can, but now the engine has stabilized, we can turn the ignition and the starter off, by the way. So then we go ignition and starter for the right engine. Come and look down here. We look at the NH dial here. Wait for it to get past 10%. So this is electrically spinning up the engine, and then we introduce the fuel to the engine and it ignites and continues on round. So once that gets to a stable condition, we can jump back overhead and go and turn off the ignition and the starter. Okay. Just reading down through my checklist to make sure I've not missed anything. So we can now move the battery switch over to BAT, and we turn the generators on. Okay. So we're now preparing for taxi. So we need to go and put the taxi lights on. We're going to go and set the HSI for the runway direction. So let's go and have a little check on the map. Given the wind, we are going to take off runway 25. So we want 246 degrees on the HSI. So here's the HSI. So we're going to go and set 246 degrees, which is about there. And we'll set the course as well for the same. Oops. There we go. So having done that, we go to the radio stack, we turn the transponder on now. Parking brakes to off. Let's have a look outside. And we should be able to taxi. So we're going to ease the throttles forwards. We're going to ignore the ground traffic here because it's just an annoyance in Flight Simulator. So the turning circle, as you can see, is very, very good. So what's the easiest way out for us? Yeah, if we follow on to the taxiway here, and then we'll go for an intersection takeoff. So we'll just come out to the weather is really lovely today, isn't it? You can see, but the weather effects on the windscreens are actually really nicely done. Just check that against the map. Yeah, we are going in the right direction. So we're going to turn right here and follow the taxiway. So while we're taxiing along, let's have a look at the next few things we're going to do. So the overhead, we're going to go and turn on the pitot heat in a moment, but we're not going to do it until we're within 2 minutes of takeoff. So we'll hang on for a moment. So should we have a look at this from outside while we're taxiing? There is some phasing of the engine noises. The one thing that lets this aircraft down, I think, are the sounds. You can see when you get behind the engines, you get this odd kind of underwater effect. When you're in front of them, they don't sound too bad. From inside, it sounds fine. So we're just taxiing down to the intersection for the takeoff. The weather radar is inoperable, doesn't work. It's just the 3D asset is there, it's just not been implemented at all. It may be because the weather code wasn't there when the aircraft was developed. Whether they will come back and add it, I'm not sure. Or whether there are any realism mods for this that re-add it, I don't know. I've not looked. Just taxi down. So just coming up to the intersection now. Okay, so if you remember, we said we were going to nip overhead when we got near the runway. We're going to go and turn on the landing lights now. We're going to go and let me just check where we're going before we do this. Turn on the pitot static heat and the passenger heat and the seat belts and the no smoking. We should have done seat belts and no smoking earlier. I missed them while I was talking. The perennial problem of multitasking and me being terrible at it. So the other thing we do is go and set auto feathering. So that's the switch here. And we're going to, now we're getting near the runway, we're going to push the propeller RPM forwards. And roll out onto the runway. Okay, let's get the show on the road, shall we? So, engines fully forwards. And rotate. And gear up. And we'll go for about 1500 feet a minute climb out. So you can see it's a lovely part of the world around here, even in terrible weather. The northeast of England is very beautiful. Okay, so we're going to hold about 245 degrees. We shouldn't be on the autopilot until we go to 3,000 feet, so we'll continue climbing in a straight line for the moment. We'll continue using our reference of the HSI to maintain runway direction. Okay, so once you're on the climb out, I'm just going to remove the yoke so we can see this. We can turn on propeller sync. And you can turn off the feathering. and then once you've done your initial climb, we've started to turn. Look, we shouldn't have done that, but that's me looking at the checklist and not keeping an eye on the aeroplane. Once you've done your initial climb out, you can pull the engines back to 80 or 90%. Same goes for the RPM. Okay, so at this point we'll have a play with the autopilot. So we're just coming up to 3,000 feet. So we'll go and engage the autopilot straight away and the yaw damper, and that will go for pitch and wing leveling mode fully automatically. Yeah, so you can't quite see it under there. Yeah, flight director, and you can see it's holding the plane steady basically. So we can then, one of the nice things about this aircraft is the altitude pre-selector actually works. So we'll go to 5,000 feet, and so we will arm that, and then we will push the knob and select the 1,000 feet a minute to get there. If we look up now, you will see it is stabilizing on 1,000 feet, and there's a small marker there on the instrument, and we are climbing towards 10,000. Sorry, 5,000. Okay, so let's have a look on the map and see how we're doing. So we are going to go to heading mode, which will make the aeroplane turn left because we had drifted slightly while we were busy talking again. You can see the various modes are appearing on the panel. So taxi lights, did we turn them off? We will now. Taxi lights are off. We'll keep the landing lights on below 10,000 feet. And now it's up to us basically to fly the aeroplane properly. So we're going to just climb into this cloud, which is unfortunate. Should we go above it? So let's continue our climb up to 7,500. And let's do it at 1,700 feet per minute. So you can see the aircraft is quite happy. It's doing about 115 knots at the moment. If we push it and ease the throttles forwards, it's actually quite powerful, quite a fast aircraft. So you can see it's holding that speed quite handily. If you have a look at the engine gauges, with it pushed right against the limit, it's still just within limits on the torque. So you can't easily damage it. Okay, so we should just about crest out of the top of these clouds. And we're still flying the route. So if we wanted to go and fly across this way, so let's say measure distance, say we wanted to do this kind of route, we're looking at about 128 degrees. So let's go and change our heading bug to 128 just for the purposes of our example, which is about there. So the aircraft is following our turn. Let's go and have a look from outside. We haven't raised the flaps yet. We can do that now. We're getting near top of climb. We can also, now we're getting near top of climb, go up and turn off the seatbelt sign. It's worth pointing out this is my second go in this aircraft, so if I'm making mistakes I do apologise. I'm still kind of having to refer to paperwork and thinking logically through what I need to do. It's not coming naturally at all. Okay, let's have a play with some radio navigation along the way. There is a beacon down here at Leeming, and 110.3. Oh no, that's the ILS, sorry. For the 112.60. Okay, so if we go and have a play with this 112.60, let's just see what the message is. Yeah, that's just the message. So for the navigation 112.60. switch that over. We're on heading mode, so we can change the CDI to VLOC. It's interesting. What's the range on that? 125 miles. Okay, is there an actual proper VOR anywhere nearby? There's one right the way over here. What's the range on that one? Oh, that should be fine. 112.1. Let's try it. Ah, did I just do it on the wrong nav? I did, didn't I? Let's try that again, shall we? Leeming. Click on it. Frequency for Leeming 112.6. So there's the classic mistake. There we go. It's picked it up. Very good. So if we cycle this, is it going to work? We're on 112.6. It is not behaving itself, is it? Let's try it for the VOR then, for Pole Hill. I just want to make sure that I had this working earlier. 112.10. So 112.10. And switch it. There we go. So it was me trying to go onto a TACAN. Obviously it wasn't going to have it. It's VOR only by the look of it. So if we spin this round, obviously it'll give you the heading to it. There we go. 70 miles away. Very good. Let's have a look at this from outside. Now we're cruising along. Going out towards the coast. So we are going to go and tune in the ILS though for 108.5, 228 degrees on our navigation radio. So 108.5. And change the HSI to 228 degrees. 220, so 228 is going to be about there somewhere. So that should be runway direction relative to us, so we need to make obviously quite a steep right turn when we come in for the ILS. So we need to descend down now to about 3,000 feet. So let's make that happen. So we go to the altitude pre-selector and come back down to 3,000 feet, please. Arm that and go to the vertical speed, come down at 1,500 feet a minute, please. So you can see it's already doing it. Come off the throttle so we don't go too fast. We're doing nearly 200 knots. Probably need to descend a little bit more quickly actually. So let's come down 2,500 feet a minute and pull the throttles back more. Just to stop ourselves from accelerating. Coming down to 6,000 feet already. Gonna dip back down through the cloud. So when we get back into the approach, we need to turn the propeller sync back off and turn the auto feather back on, but not until we're in the approach. So we're still coming down to 4,000 feet now. get to see some of the coast before we turn back in towards the airfield. So you will notice the autopilot does have approach mode, so we'll have a play with it on the way in, but we'll actually come in manually for the final part of the approach. So we've leveled out now at 3,000 feet, so increase the throttles to hold our speed. You'll see, if we look on the reference map here, we're going to start turning in a moment, so we could do it now actually. So it would be good if we went for kind of a 180 degrees, 175 degrees-ish. Yeah, let's go for 170. So if we turn the heading knob now to 170 degrees. Oops. So the aircraft's turning, maintaining 3,000. Engines are only at 50% and they're holding 150 knots rather easily, which is good. It's amazing scenery, isn't it? Obviously we can scoot around the cockpit, so as we might normally. The only real letdown in this aircraft is the cabin isn't wonderfully modelled, but if you're not too worried about that, the actual cockpit is modelled perfectly well, and it's very clear, as I said, so it's very easy to see what's going on. Most things are clickable as well, so you know, most systems are modelled, so you can play around with causing all sorts of problems for yourself. Okay, so you can see we've made that turn and we're coming in towards the ILS. Let's just check the altitude of elevation is 120 feet, so we're on about 2,600 feet when we get to the ILS. So let's just do that. So we go back onto here. Interestingly, we can't go for hundreds easily. Okay, it's not a major concern. Just something for us to think about, because you can see already here comes the glide slope. So we may end up being a little bit high, but we can obviously correct for that. So let's turn off the autopilot at this point. And we'll start gently descending. And we should see the course deviation indicator start to sweep in across the horizontal situation indicator in a moment. We've got 9.8, 9.7 miles to run. Did I go and turn on the static? Yes, I did. So we can go, and I don't think we need to do much up here. We're looking good. Some nice interesting weather for us to contend with. Always fun. Here comes the course deviation indicator. So let's go and get this turned towards the runway direction now. And you can see the runway in the mist directly in front of us, which is always a good sign. So we could, if we chose to, go and turn on the autopilot and go for approach mode and see how it handles it. So I'm going to come off the throttle now. just want to see if it captures, but then we'll go back to manual flying because it's much more fun flying by hand. So yeah, it's descending. It looks to have captured the... It looks about the right rate as well, about 600-700 feet a minute usually on an ILS for a 3-degree glide slope, which is what we're seeing here. It's going towards 800 feet though, which is quite interesting. It's probably chasing it a little bit, but it seems to be staying low on the glide slope, which is interesting. So we'll get the gear down. Should we switch the animation, see that happen? We should see the light come on. You would think, oh, that'll be the taxi light, wouldn't it? So let's go and put the taxi light on now as well. And we should see, there we go. So aircraft at the moment is flying completely on its own devices towards the runway. We'll start to extend the flaps. So you'll see the flaps extending out. We're going to go inside now to keep an eye on airspeed. Obviously we've got much more drag going on now. Right. This is no fun watching something land itself, so I'm going to come off the autopilot now. Center us up on the instrument stack and take control. So let's get back on that glide slope for a start, because we're nowhere near it at the moment. Now if you remember, we said when we are on approach we go and set auto feather and turn off sync. Now we've gone high while we were busy doing that, so not going to worry too much. Still a long way out, we can correct. There we go, back on track. So flying directly into the wind almost, so we've got almost no crosswind to deal with. So we're just managing speed now, so we'll come off the throttle gently. Increase to full flaps for final approach. A little bit low, just climbing back onto the glide slope. You can see there's a bit of turbulence from that headwind. Don't want to get much slower than 100 knots. The only reason for staying around the 100 knot mark is to give ourselves some margin over stall speed. Obviously you can see we're coming in very easily indeed, so we now cut the engine back to idle and misjudged the... Ooh, the weather just reset as we came down. Misjudged the flare slightly, but again that's practice. This aircraft does have reversers, so you can reverse the pitch on the blades. We're not going to. So raise the flaps, we're not going to need to. Came in so gently. So off at the exit. Obviously if we had ATC we would now contact the tower, tell them clear of active. We don't need to. We're not using ATC today. So there you go. The only issues I really have with this aeroplane at all are the sounds. So you can hear phasing of the propeller sounds and the external sounds are really odd. They could do with being completely redone. Now, there is a guy in Germany that has completely redone the sounds on it for us, but it requires meddling with the simulator to install them, which I'm not willing to do. And he's done a full Wise sound set for it, and you have to join his Patreon to get it, but I'm not quite willing to do that. Okay, so to cut the engines, it's fairly straightforward stuff. You can just do a fuel cut-off and they will die, essentially. Obviously, you would go to external power if you've got it available at this point. Otherwise, you're just going through, turning things off. We should have got rid of the separation, by the way, as well. Again, that's me, something I've missed off my checklist. We can turn the pitot and the various switches off. We didn't turn the seat belts on approach, something else I've missed off the checklist. We can turn the generators off now because the engines aren't running. We could go to see if this external will work. I doubt if it will. No, there's no external here. Look, oh, it has switched on there. That's interesting. But yeah, obviously we lost power then, I guess, because we went to no power whatsoever. Normally you'd switch over to external power before killing everything. But anyway, lots of procedural things to learn along the way. But otherwise, I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful aeroplane. There's lots to play with. Lots to think about while you're flying. It keeps you busy. That's the main thing that I object to with the fully automated aeroplanes, is there's a lot of nothing going on in the middle of the flight. This has always got something for you to be doing, which I think is great. I haven't checked to see if any of the doors or anything work. Should we go and have a look? So, has this got a handle? So it's got a click spot on it somewhere. I think you have to do it via the tablet. I haven't told you about that, have I? There is a tablet in here. So if we go and open the tablet and let's put all of the static elements in and see what they all look like, shall we? Notice it has got PMS GTN 750 integration if you have it. There we go. So we've got the storage, we've got the main door, and you've got lots of static elements like the engine covers, pitot covers, things like that. It's very cool, isn't it? Right, there you go. There's even a... That's to prevent the aircraft from tipping, isn't it? So if they overload the storage so it can't tip backwards and smash its tail on the ground. It's got chocks under the wheels. Very cool. Anyway, that's the Embraer 110 by NextGen. It's just under £30, about $35. I think it's actually really good value. Okay, it's maybe not as polished as some of the newer aircraft that have come out, but if the sound was updated, it would be right up there with the rest of the others. It's very good fun to fly. Obviously, it's got the GNS 430, which has been upgraded now, so that makes that interesting. And again, if they were to put the weather radar in now that Acerbo have started working on that, that would be really cool as well. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. That was a bit of a first flight with a few mistakes in there to boot. So I hope, lots of progress to be made in terms of operating it in a sensible manner. But hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.